We're live. Hello, Alicia. The figuring out the internet is always the fun part for doing this for me. It's like the anticipatory, like, what's gonna happen? All right. Anyway, welcome to the interview with Out of My Damn Mind. This is the space where walls fall away, where stories don't just get told, they land messy, real, and alive. Here, writers open the door to what drives them, what haunts them, and what keeps them going. Every voice has its own rhythm, its own scars, its own sparks, and together we trace the threads that hold us, break us, and connect us all. I am so happy, one, to finally have a man on my show, but two, for for it to be Josh Horror Hangouts. Thank you for joining me today, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me tonight.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Great to be here.
I'm so excited. Travis, thanks for joining. The Intrepid Editor Press, thanks for joining. I literally was like, this has probably been the most fun for me to come up with questions, just because it's a out of the box little, like me coming out of the box a little bit, kind of getting into your work and stuff. I appreciate you very much for doing what you do, by the way, just so you know.
Well,
Because
thank you.
I'm not somebody that tends to read that type of genre, but you have figured out a way to get me to do it, and I like it, you know?
Well, what can I say? I know how to push the genre a little bit, but that being said, I've really enjoyed what you've done with your Substack. I think it's great the way you've brought people together from all different walks of life, it seems like, and build a pretty supportive community. So kudos to you.
Oh, well, I love having you a part of it. Like I told you before we went live, I was like, you've been a part of this ride for a while. Like I adore that you've been here for so long, and I appreciate that. And obviously our communities are gonna collide right now, and that's the cool part about
Hmm.
this whole space. Rebecca, Karen, Lindsay, thanks for joining. Amber Healing, thanks for joining. If you are new to this, like Josh is, I come up with 20 curated questions for my co-host. So today I have 20 just for Mr. Horror Hangouts. Now, do you want to pick your numbers, or do you want me to like randomly shoot fire?
Just randomly do it.
All right. Well, we always like to kind of start with something easy. Why did you choose Substack as a place to share your work?
Well, it started because let's see here. Let's see. I joined in last day, January 30th or something of last year. And part of it was I was thinking I had heard of Substack and I wanted to find a better platform to maybe promote my own books. I had like my own little website, but got no traffic and I'm paying $25 a month for what exactly? And a friend of mine had just started, who I know from Instagram, had just started her Substack. So for you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I decided I would use it almost like a website. Of course, it's blown up to something a lot more than that. And yeah, sure, I'll plug my books that I've got published and whatnot. But I found, well, I'll write a bunch of articles normally dealing with the horror genre, maybe reviewing movies and whatnot. And of course, along the way, I've met plenty of several great content creators, and a lot of them in the horror genre, a lot of them like yourself that are outside the genre. So, and I have several interests. So, it's pretty easy for me to kind of venture off a little bit every once in a while.
Well, I kinda love that because I do believe that there is, like, a huge horror community, like, very much
There
so.
is.
It's very obvious, like, we love those movies, but on top of it, there's other things that are surrounding that with, whether fiction or other great books and stuff like that. So, I love that you don't just stay in that lane, but I love that you've exposed me to that lane. I don't know, maybe I'm just a big scaredy cat and I don't like watching scary movies. I rather absorb my time with the comedy. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I respect the hell out of people that, enjoy watching that. I mean, documentaries are probably, like, the scariest things I watch.
Well, there's some horror movies that kind of play out like documentaries a little
Yep.
bit. So.
Um, well, with that being said, I kinda wanna ask a little bit of a horror type of question. Um, what scares you more as a writer? Running out of ideas or writing something that doesn't land?
Uh, Probably writing something that doesn't land.
Hmm.
It's always frustrating when you think you've written something that you think, "Oh, wow, I really nailed this one," and then it's like playing to crickets. One of those things, I'm like, "Well, what did I do?" And then you're second guessing yourself. "Alright, what did I do wrong? What should I have done better?" And, in a lot of ways, Substack's a great training ground because I'm in the process of writing, my next book that's gonna be a series of short stories, so I can post these short stories, get some hopefully get some feedback, and then when it's time to go back and maybe re-edit or whatever, I can at least have an idea of where the story lands. But when it's not getting any comments whatsoever, I'm like, "Uh-oh, what did I do wrong here?"
Well, but I think that, like I said, that plays into what we were speaking a little bit earlier about the bubble. And, timing is fucking everything too. Like, I think there are obviously different countries, people from everywhere on this platform. So, like, different times of the day, I feel like certain posts get more tractions and views or disappear very quickly because everybody's posting at the same time. And, like, it doesn't get seen in the same type of way. But that's interesting for me because I feel like I don't know if I pay it. I totally get what you mean by what you said because lately Substack just feels like a whole big void. But I don't really know if I get too concerned about how things. I think like I get more scared about like the writer's block and like, oh crap, it's been several days and like why can't I think of something to write about? And oh my god, is my gift gone? Like, everything that I want to do for the rest of my life just doesn't happen? Like going down that spiral scares me a lot more sometimes. Mm, but I just wanted to say that Lindsay said documentaries can be super scary. I'm glad that somebody else agrees because that's how I feel sometimes. Um, which you recently wrote about War is a Rocket.
Mhm.
Um, you wrote about War is a Rocket. What about the book stuck with you the most?
Well, it's a very short book. I'd heard about the book itself a long time ago. Of course, this book was written by a former, general who had served in World War One.
Yeah.
And that's what's amazing because he's writing about things that, this book was released in 1935. This is even before World War II. Hitler hadn't even invaded Poland. And I think this book resonates even more now today, or certainly over the last 25 years or so, 60 years, if you want to go back to the Vietnam War. And being someone who's very anti war,
Mm.
uh, I appreciate because here's a former general giving you the laydown on why war is total, basically, why war is total bullshit. And it's basically just, if I could cuss on your channel, I'm sorry. But,
You can absolutely do that.
okay. But, so that's what resonated me. And given some of the recent events, I
Yeah.
decided to give it a reread. It's not very long. It's only like 36 pages. And I thought I would give it a read again. And then I decided to go ahead and just on the spur of the moment, I decided, I'm going to do a brief little book review on it and maybe wake some people up in the process if I can, or give people a perspective. And hopefully they'll go out and buy the book. Like I said, it's like probably get for $5 or $6 probably, wherever you get your book
Only
from.
36 pages, so that is literally my type of book, even
Yeah.
though like, I was just having that whole conversation with somebody that, like, sometimes my ADHD impairs my ability to read longer form because at some point I stop, I'm reading, but, like, there's other things happening in my brain at the same time, so then I feel like I can't stay focused enough to even understand what the fuck I'm reading. So that's a
Right.
little challenge that I have. So I usually go for bite-sized stuff, and that's also probably what's limiting my ability because there are great fiction writers on here that
Hmm.
I unfortunately don't read because I'm like, "Oh, 17 minutes, that's gonna take me a while." Like, even you when you sent me one, I was like, "Oh, that's gonna take me a little bit because it's like
Right.
30 something."
Well,
But
and
I
as a
appreciate it.
reader, I'm the same way. I have a hard time reading, big novels or whatnot. I typically stay within reading novellas, something that's going to be around 200 to 300 page mark, somewhere around there,
Yeah.
or reading short stories. But yeah, even here on Substack, I can't. I have a hard time reading something that's going to be really long on my smartphone.
Oh, yeah.
I have to wait till I get back home and read it on my laptop because it's just easier for me to focus that way on reading something.
That
When you're
might
reading on your phone, there's just too many distractions.
but that's also a good point. Maybe I could try reading more on the laptop. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
But do you think writers have a responsibility to point out uncomfortable truths?
Well, that's not. I mean, that's all up to them. Oftentimes, some of the stuff I write, I will end up. Certainly, the case in the first couple books that I wrote, where I had no intention of like adding any type of social commentary into it. It just kind of came out naturally in the characters. And the next thing you know, I'm like, oh, look what I just did there. I didn't mean to do that. It just kind of comes out. Sometimes when you're writing characters, they sometimes take over the story and takes the story um, to a different direction than you anticipated. And I see that happening a lot. Of course, really, it's not them, it's my own subconscious taking over and wanting to talk about particular subjects. So I don't say, people can write what they want to write as long as they love doing what they're doing. That's the most important thing. But I see more and more, I think most writers do typically like to have something to say in their stories. So, and they'll put it in the context of fiction to make it maybe a little bit more mm, I don't want to say entertaining, but to be a little bit more,
You could
uh,
kinda get away with it more there because it's just a
yeah,
very
rather
very
than
type of
just preaching
situation.
to someone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like in my reflections, I sometimes feel and again, we're only speaking about oneself, but sometimes I feel like it's important to say the uncomfortable things in those reflections. Like, I sometimes say stuff all the time. I'm like, I just put a note out there. I don't really know if that was probably like, I don't know if I'm the only one that thinks that. Like, what this somebody's gonna come across this bitch and be like, "What the fuck is she talking about?" Like, I just wrote about like, what happens in public bathrooms. Like, why are they always so like, I'm just being kind of funny in thought, but, like, the response to that note about why some humans have such a hard time, like, keeping a public bathroom. Because I just said, like, why people don't flush the toilet. Like, I'm just like, "If you're using a public bathroom, why are you not flushing the toilet? If you don't flush the
Yeah,
toilet."
that's a good. I know some people do that. I don't get the idea. I mean, have some
But that
respect for the next person that's coming in behind you, you know?
but that's apparently an uncomfortable truth that I didn't realize so many people had an experience with. So I by me just being willing to say the shit. It kind of allowed felt like people other freedom to be like, "Yo, literally my life's work is trying to figure out why this happens." Like, we don't understand humans sometimes. But Brittany, Mark, thanks for joining the human. Thanks for saying hello. Emmett, thanks for saying hello, hello. But yeah, I just thought it was really funny because, sometimes I say some fucking stupid shit. I'm like, why would somebody come across my note and engage with it? I'm talking about flushing the toilet. But, but those are the ones that usually have the most engagement. So I kind of love it. Hello, Brittany. If you're just joining, I'm with Horror Hangouts tonight, aka Josh. Um, and I'm already having fun. So, uh, do you think horror is more about monsters or about people,
More about monsters. What was the other part?
or about people?
Oh, people. I've kind of come to, I would find this out over the years, watching horror. And as you know, I do a lot of deep diving. Hello, human Kurt.
Cartographer.
Yeah.
So
But
apparently we need a THC. I like that. So that's what I'm gonna call you now, my friend. Makes it
there
easier
we
for
go.
everybody. THC. Thank you for
But
joining.
anyhow, I mean, I've come to learn that the monsters in these films are just simply metaphors, really, for our own fears, our own anxieties, our own flaws, if you will. They typically hold a mirror up to society in a lot of ways. So it really is about the people. I mean, the monster in the story is, of course, important, but equally important is having a good enough protagonist in the story because that's the person you're living vicariously through because as they are conquering their own fears, you are too. If that makes any sense. So I do think that the people element is very important in horror, and probably just as, if not more than the monster itself.
Mm. So it makes me wonder, like, how did somebody like in your like yourself, like what age were you or like what movie was it that captivated you that you were like, I love this genre?
Well, it started back when I was a little kid. I was about 5 years old. And you have to remember, I'm a bit older than you, so this is like 1979 when most households, I mean, cable television wasn't even a thing. And if you said streaming, no one's going to know what you're talking about. You had about three or four television stations to watch. Well, I had one local station every Friday night would show an old horror film. So the first one I would end up watching, my mom would let me stay up late and watch it, was Dracula, the original
Nice.
one from 1931. And initially, it was just, I think as a kid, I think most kids are like this. We like fantasy to begin with, going into a different time or place. Because, I was a big Star Wars fan too at that
Mm,
time. Big Superman, the Superman movie had come out and all that. And, at first, horror was taking me to a different universe, old castles, dusty cobwebs, vampires, werewolves, so forth, and mad scientists. And so that's why it really got me into horror. And as I was getting later in my probably teenage, over the years, I would just kind of move up from decade to decade, go from those old Universal films to the creature features of the 50s with Godzilla and all those movies, and then the Hammer horror films of the 60s, which is British studio that kind of redid a lot of the old Universal studios. And before you know it, I'm getting into more of your modern, and at least modern at the time, films as I was getting in my teenage years. So, and it was probably around that time that I started understanding what the genre was trying to say.
what was modern that you're saying? Because 'Cause I'm like,
Well, when I say
what is
modern,
something
I mean,
recent right now? Like, in the last 5 years, what's a horror movie that came out that is it just like a remake of something else?
well, by modern, I mean probably movies that came out in the 70s and 80s and 90s. That's often looked upon as the modern era. So
Modern?
it was probably movies like Jaws for starters, Alien, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Hellraiser, Stephen King's The Shining,
Mm.
and now we're in, I guess you could call it the new modern era. But over the last 5 years, the movies I probably have enjoyed most has been The Substance, which came out a little over a year ago, had Demi Moore in it, and she was actually nominated for Best Actress for that movie.
Interesting.
That's one. The Nosferatu movie that came out also, with Bill Skarsgård, who had played Pennywise in the movie version of it. So those are a couple that I really enjoyed that came out in the last few years. Also, X, Pearl, those movies as well.
Well, I mean, it's quite fascinating to me because I do feel like I grew up in an era where it was there was a great movie that was made prior to me being alive that now they just kind of, like, updated it a little bit. But you, recently wrote about Friday the 13th. What makes Part 4 stand out to you in that franchise?
Well, as I illustrated, when I wrote that story, because part of our own little secret society, the Scare Stack Society within Substack, where all of us,
I've seen that. I mean, not as much as and not as late because of what it's doing, but I have seen that you guys have that.
well, big shout out to Kyle Horror Bull Rider. He's the one that put it
See,
together, and each of us are taking turns writing about a different Friday the 13th movie. And with four, I guess that one, I think that was like the second one that I remember seeing. I think I saw part three first, then part four, and then had to backtrack a little bit. But as I illustrated in the story, it's kind of like the end of one era and kind of starts a new era in that
Mhm.
franchise, because that one kind of ends like basically a four-part narrative, essentially. And then, it's supposed to be the final chapter. Jason's dead, they think, for good. But then in a couple films, they basically changed him up a little bit. He's now come back from the dead. He's kind of a zombie version now of Jason. So it's really kind of the bridge between two eras of that franchise I always found interesting. You have a really good final girl in that one, plus a final kid,
Mm,
um, played by Corey Feldman at the time. So that kind of resonates when you see that as a kid, because as children, we all have our little fears, what's underneath the bed and all that stuff. And through this character, we're able to live through that a little bit. It goes back to what I was saying, having a good protagonist in a story that you can relate to and kind of follow them on their little journey that they're going on. Even a movie like the Friday 13th franchise, which most people just slug off as being, well, it's just all about the kills and all this stuff. But the
this
genius
story
of
to it.
that series, though, is each movie, at least most of the movies, have some really good characters. Grant, most of them are going to die, but they're characters you can relate to because they're characters you went to school with. They're your brother, they're your sister. They remind you of your next door neighbor or whatnot, or the girl or the guy that you had a crush on. That's kind of the beauty of those
They do do a
movies,
good
I
job
think.
at doing that, don't they?
Yeah, I think they
They do a
do
really good job at that.
I think they do the best job of it. And maybe you could say Halloween as well, but I think those two seem to do the best job as far as your big slasher franchises go of having good supporting characters plus a great like final, if it ends up most times it's a final girl, but sometimes you get a final guy. But
Is Scream also in that, like is Scream
I was
also in it?
never I would say
No?
yes for most people. Scream was a movie that never quite resonated with me. Um, well,
Yeah,
and it's not that it's a bad movie or the movies are bad. They're obviously been really successful. It's just the look of Scream looks a little too clean for me.
mm.
Whereas the other movies have a much more grittier look to them. Scream looks like characters that came off the show, and I apologize to those who might be big Scream fans. It looked like they came off the show Beverly Hills 90210 or one of
Yeah,
those,
they're
you
pretty.
know, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, no, I
I
get what
like it a little bit more grittier and grimier, but I give them their hats off. You know, the fans are super passionate about that series, and if someone's passionate about something, I think that's a good thing, whether I liked it or not. So relevant, really.
that's true. That's very true. And you brought up something that I actually had a question. Do you remember the first thing that genuinely scared you as a kid?
I tell you what, I mean, I can't think of any. Probably being kidnapped, to be honest. I think I to this day, this is like a weird thing. And this is probably the first time I've ever really talked about it. Now that I think about it, and I don't know if this was a dream or not. I probably couldn't have been older than 4 years old, but I have this memory where it's the middle of the night and I feel like someone's like picking me up out of the bed. I don't know
Mm.
who it is. I can't see their face. And I remember yelling out for my mom, and they just said, shh, and then set me back in my bed and left, and I could hear a car turning over and driving away. And
So they kind of like they were going to take you, but they didn't take you.
exactly, and and that's the thing, I don't know if it was a nightmare, if it was a real thing. I don't think it was a real thing because if it was, there would have been like my parents would have found the signs of someone breaking in for starters, because they always locked the house up. So it's like it's just the weirdest thing. So that always kind of like creeped me out a little bit. And it's like in 1983 or 84, the only real movie that ever scared the shit out of me was this made for television movie. And it was based on a real life story. It was called Adam. And that it was about the real life abduction and murder of Adam Walsh. who was a 6-year-old kid in 1980, 81, who was abducted and his remains were later found. You might know his dad by the name of John Walsh, who used to do host America's Most Wanted.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
watching
so
that at
his son?
what was that?
So his son?
Yeah, it was his son, and he pretty much made a lot of the laws we have in this country regarding, like, you hear about the Amber Alerts. Well,
Right.
stuff like that originated in fingerprinting kids and whatnot when they're really young, getting them in the database was done because of that and the attention that John Walsh and his wife brought to the situation because cops were like, they didn't know what was going on. They had no clue. And by the time they found his body, it was too late, obviously. So that always scared the shit out of me because I was 9 years old when I watched that for the first time. And then I forgot about,
But you had that experience younger in life, so that
yes, yes. And that just reinforced it again. And then as I've gotten older, of course, I forgot about that experience over the years. But then once I started having kids,
uh,
those old fears kind of like crept up. So I was like very watchful of my kids when they were younger. And, I think every parent nowadays still has that fear no matter how old your kids are. So,
no, yeah, absolutely, my parents still have those moments too, and me and my sister are mid-30s. We're both mid-30s, and
mhm,
both of my parents still, like, freak out. But I guess the cool thing about the way we advance shit is now my nephew has a phone, and he doesn't go anywhere without his phone, and guess what? I could track your phone.
right.
So, like, it sucks for kids because your parents will always know where you are,
Mhm,
but that's also a very great thing because your parents will always know where you are.
right.
Right? But I don't think that they see it. Like, I don't know if you could remember back when you were in high school, if you would have wanted your mommy and daddy to be able to track you down.
Oh, well,
Right.
well, A, we didn't have cell phones back there, so
We know
back
that.
then, so they couldn't.
We know that. Me neither, bro. Me neither. They couldn't track me. I'm not that I just said mid-30s. I'm gonna be 37 this year. You might be like, "Baby," but I'm like, "Yo, my first phone was a flippy, just like everybody else." Like,
Yep. I remember
the
those.
Nokia block, like, that was the first one, and then, like, the flip phones, and then, we know how it goes.
Yeah, but no, I wouldn't have, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
but that's what I'm saying,
Uh,
but as a parent today, that's a peace of mind that you have.
right, right, and fortunately, my kids, I mean, it's not like they go out. I mean, they're pretty good about telling me and their mother where they're gonna be at and where for the most part, and so we do a good job of keeping track of them and without necessarily being helicopter parents either,
Yeah.
because I'm a very independent person and you know, I kind of try to respect and they're both very strong-willed kids.
Well,
So,
they're your children. I mean,
yeah.
you have played a role in their upbringing, so you've impacted them in more ways than one, I'm sure.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, I'm sure.
but yeah, I also wouldn't wanna be tracked because my mom used to ask me all the time, "Where are you going?" "Out." That's all I would ever say, and she's like, "Out where?" I was like, "Side." I was that kid. Um, if you were dropped into a slasher movie, would you survive?
Depends on, knowing what I know, yes, because I would just the first sign of trouble, I'm getting the hell out of there. Um,
But does that make you more suspicious of things in your day-to-day life?
I'm a little bit more aware of things. I mean, those movies don't really scare me, to be honest with you. Some of them might disturb me a little bit, but for the most part, because I know it's fiction, I just enjoy the whole arc of because they're basically just stories about good versus evil, and I think a lot of us like those type of movies no matter what type of genre it happens to fall into. I don't know, my luck is I'd probably be scoring with a chick, and then I'd probably get killed during the act, so but which is one of those typical tropes that you see in those movies, but
But I love that you were like, "Yeah, that's me." You're like, "That's I'm him. That's me." That's funny. Um, you d That was really funny for me. Emmett said that hold on, I missed a thing. He said, "My parents told me the movie The Lost Boys." I don't know The Lost Boys. Do you know The Lost Boys?
I do know the Lost Boys, and that's a big time that's almost a rite of passage movie if you grew up in the '80s, I think. It's not my very favorite vampire movie, but it's definitely a very fun. It's if you like uh punk bikers or what biker gangs that end up
Mhm.
being vampires, and I think you'll love it. I think it might be a movie because I don't think it's overly. I don't consider it overly gruesome anyway. And granted, I have a high threshold, but it's an R-rated movie that really feels more like a PG-13 movie. I think it's been a while since I've seen it, but that might be a movie that I think you would like. That would be a good, like a good gateway horror
Well, I
film.
I think
I
it
think
was
for
in
people to
Lou.
watch.
Well, I think it was in Lou because you said, like, your first one was Dracula,
Right.
so maybe they were like, "Oh, maybe he saw Lost Boys." Like, in lieu
I
of that.
I do love vampire movies by and large, not Twilight, mind you, but
I don't really count that, like, I don't really
I
count that.
don't either.
That's not what we're talking about. Those are not real vampires. They love too much. What's something about you that people wouldn't expect from a horror writer?
Gosh, I think a lot of people have gotten to know me pretty well. That's a good question. Something they wouldn't expect about me. I don't I don't know a lot about it, but I have a really huge appreciation for art, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, Probably because it's something I can't do. I can write maybe, and that's even debatable, but I
Shut up.
damn sure cannot draw. So
But
so
that's
I
that's
do
why
like
I color,
uh-huh.
so but yes, go ahead. But you can't draw, I can't draw either. No
No,
shade.
no, I can't even draw. I can barely draw a stick figure. So to see someone like actually draw some real, whatever type of picture it is, I have a lot of appreciation for that. So and there's a few people here on Substack that I like to follow, and one in particular will actually do a deep dive in the history of certain art periods and artworks, and I find all that fascinating, even though I don't understand half of what what, what she's saying, but I do appreciate it. So I guess maybe that's one thing about me.
I mean, that's a great thing about you. I think art is very interpretive, so, I mean, I like art. I can't do a lot of art, but I am always blown away by people's talent and, you know, there's the spray paint guys that can do things upside down, and you turn it around and like, "Oh, there's a whole thing there that you would not know that they just did, like, upside down," it looked like. Like, it's insane, like, I've seen shit like that, and then, like, just your y people drawing stuff, anything, anybody that can especially, like, a portrait, like, something that how did you nail that? Like, I can't do that. So it's
Yeah,
I take
I wouldn't even know how, So,
to your point, I also find art fascinating because I don't know how to do it. Like, I think my brain spends the whole time trying to figure out, well, how did they do that? Like, it's a magic trick or something.
yeah, almost. Like, how, I mean, it must take not only a lot of skill, but just a lot of discipline and practice, I would imagine, to be that good at it. So,
I guess that's, just life in general, right? We're all talented in our own ways, but we all could probably do a lot of things if we had the ability or opportunity to practice certain things every day, right? Life gets in the way of stuff sometimes.
oh
Ugh.
yeah, I mean, I wish, I like was rich or whatever to the point to where I could just spend most of my day either writing, reading, or doing things on my YouTube channel and just do that all day long. But at last, we have a mortgage to pay, an electric bill, and they kind of like to have their money once a month. So it's kind of also helpful to eat. You kind of need food. So
Yeah, and I love that you would choose to create if, bills weren't a thing, or if life was different where it wasn't that it wasn't a thing, it wasn't maybe as much as what it is now, right? Like, if I
exactly.
if I could get away for paying, like, $100 for all that shit, then great. Like, then sure, like, yes, then it makes it a lot easier to feel free, but I know that there are also people that will say, like, have a contradiction to it of, it's all of a mindset thing, like, what you think about, how you approach life, if you wanna create, then you'll find a way for that to be the focal point in it somehow, and I'm just like, "Those are risks. That's risky. That's risky." But I don't know. I mean, like to your point, I do also struggle with kind of believing that being creative can be the thing that I can just do, but I would definitely like to just do it. Um, do you think facing fear, even in stories, help people understand themselves better?
I think so. I think there's and it goes back to what I was saying, with the people being, just as important to the story as the monster. Um, Once again, if there's something well, I'll take a personal story. There was a time right about 1988 or so. I was about 14 at the time, and I was going through a rough patch in my life, as a lot of teenagers do, where most of us, other than the maybe even the popular kids, are probably a little bit self-conscious, a little bit, and they just don't admit it. But we're self-conscious. In my case, I'm living with a parent that I don't want to be living with, and all this stuff. And I got, when I watched a couple movies in the theater within a span of about a couple months of each other. I was probably too young to get in, but I was able to somehow get in without getting carded. I saw Halloween 4, which came out around October of '88. And then a couple of months later, I watched Hellbound Hellraiser 2, which came out right before Christmas. And those 2 movies, particularly Hellraiser 2, um, I don't know, watching the main character, Kirsty, the final girl in that movie, watching her literally go to hell and back gave me a little bit of strength or a little bit of inspiration that
Mm.
things are going to get better at some point here. It's not going to be easy, and I think that's one of the morals we can learn from horror movies, and that's what I learned. And I've always said, backtracking to my beginnings of in interest in horror, I always said that Dracula and Frankenstein made me fall in love with horror. Halloween and Hellraiser made horror my favorite genre. So if that makes any sense,
Oh,
it just elevated my fandom that much more. So,
well, it also sounded like movies that you needed to see at that time to continue
hmm
to get you through your own little path. Well, that's very interesting too. I don't think I've seen Hellraiser. But to be all fair, I haven't seen that many. I have seen, like, the bigger name ones, but I haven't really seen, especially still being a little bit older. Um, hmm, why do you think people enjoy being scared by fiction?
I think the thing with horror is it's so layered. On the outside, it's the spookiness, the vibe, the atmosphere, it's the blood, the gore, and all that stuff. But once again, deep down inside, it's just like why people like to go on a roller coaster. They know they're going to get scared when they take that big drop, and they're going to scream. And maybe it's a lot of it, and everyone's different. Everyone has their different reasons, of course, but a lot of it's just getting that angst out. It's a way of maybe getting getting whatever's bothering them or whatever afraid of them, helping them confront that and just getting it out of their system. I think that's really for a lot of people, that's what kind of comes down to it. And then it can be several other different things, obviously, but
Are you a big, like, haunted house kinda guy?
by haunted house you mean like investigating haunted houses and whatnot?
I mean, it could go either way, right? It could be that or the Halloween version of it where you sign waivers and let people drag you and scare the crap out of you.
Um I mean, I wouldn't object to I haven't really gone or visited. I mean, I've gone to like the fun little haunted houses that they decorate or whatever, get ready for the Halloween season. I've
And
never
so you
actually
but you like those, like, you'll stand
yeah.
online, you'll wait, and you'll go in and you pay somebody to just be like, "Scare me," or, like, I've seen some creepy shit in some haunted houses, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I'm scared. Thank you." One was held inside an actual, like, haunted house, and then it was more like creepy child-like things, so I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that's gonna get me every time." Every time.
My
So but
whole thing is, you wanna try and scare me, give it your best shot, 'cause chances are you're not going to, and they normally don't, but I do l I mean, I go there for the whole experience, I guess, when I go to one of those places, and, just to look at basically, once again, we talk about art, the makeup, the time that they put into creating all these elaborate sets and their costumes and all that. I
it's a story
find
it's a
that I mean, that's
storytelling.
what I enjoy the most about going to those.
Yeah, I mean, they could be very storytelling, like, from room to room and stuff, so I applaud them, it is a whole show. I think those are, like, adrenaline places, like the roller coasters situation. Like, I feel like people that really enjoy those, it's some type of adrenaline or, like you were saying, angst, getting something out of their system that needs to be, released, and only in that type of way.
Hmm.
Do you think horror is more that's the wrong one. When you start a story, what usually comes first? An image, a character, or a feeling?
Ooh, normally a setting. Really, I
Mm,
try to think about where I want the story to be set in, because oftentimes I will do period pieces, stories that take place a long time ago. Sometimes I do some that take place in modern time. I just try and think about what my setting is. Then I start thinking about the characters, who are going to be my main protagonist, who's going to be my antagonist, and then I kind of develop the story from there.
I love that you said, and, like, the environment, the setting first. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Mm. Like, in my questions, I like that that was what kind of leads your direction. Would you ever do something, like, more in the future? Like, would you ever
Huh.
try to do something from, like, a future perspective of horror?
I wouldn't rule it out. I haven't done anything like that yet, but that's something I might try and do, is do something that's more, maybe something apocalyptic or something like that. Obviously, science fiction and horror often blend with one another, on s oftentimes, I think they lend each other pretty well. They're almost like first cousins in a way in the genre, and they're the ones that are kept away from the cool kids. Normally, they're in their separate tables, kind of.
I love that.
But yeah, that'd be something I would think. I haven't really thought about it, because I'm like one of these people that like I'll staying focused on one story at a time, and then when
Yeah.
I decide to get back at it, that could be something I might consider doing.
Well, I'm just intrigued because obviously you know a lot of history about different horror movies, and you've gotten to experience them through some great decades like the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s.
Mhm.
So it just make me wonder, like, could you write something from like year 3000 and what you think horror would look like from that far ahead? I don't know. So, I blow my own mind. I was like, because you like, I don't know. I just feel like you know enough history about it that you could probably figure out what it would look like at that point ahead of you.
Given the state of the world right now, who
You could have
knows?
so
But
much fun with that. You could have so much fun with that.
and I kind of delved into that, even though these last few stories that I recently wrote are pretty
Yeah.
much set in modern time. I could conceivably rewrite them to make them into the future if I wanted to. It would,
That's true.
but yeah, I mean, that's something I would consider doing, is just trying to once again put my imagination to work and think about how I would do that. Some really much more talented writers than me have kind of beat me to the punch, because I think of a movie like Alien, for example, or that's a perfect example of a sci-fi,
Sci-fi
probably the best
horror movie.
sci-fi horror film ever made. So, but I
That's
could
the only one that
maybe
I
come
know.
up with something like that.
It would be kinda interesting to know what your how you would describe your aliens.
I know I'd have to
Like,
figure
what
that
they would
one
look
out.
like, would they just be clones?
Clones. That that could be a good one, because I think clones have been used. I would probably try and come up with a
A
different type of
box?
creature if I could.
Ooh.
Something that hasn't been used, and just trying to um, go from there. Maybe something that just doesn't necessarily physically exist. Something we can't see, maybe that can maybe transport itself from one person to another. That's kind of been done before, but maybe it's something like that I could do. People
Well,
are on a space station or something, and um, all of a sudden one of them starts acting all weird and stuff, and then that person dies, and then it transfers into another person. So maybe something like that.
I love this brainstorm sesh. This is
Yeah.
the collab this is the collab that people didn't think that they needed. I'm just letting them know. I would actually would love to have an opportunity to collab something because I think that would push me out and I think I could come up with some scary shit or
Well, I've been
utilize
doing
like
some.
realistic more like because it's always scarier when it's like that could actually happen.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. This has to be done well because I've seen a lot of movies like that where, um,
Like Independence Day.
well, Independence. I'm kind of wishing for an Independence Day now, but no, something like sometimes I see some horror movies, and I'll give you an example. There's one that came out a few years ago. It was originally I think, a Danish film, and then they did an American remake of it a year later. It's called Speak No Evil. I think that's what it
Mm.
was called, and it's a real life thing, something that could happen. The problem is these two people are the absolute dumbest shits I've ever seen in a movie. And basically all the problems that happened to them, they pretty much brought on themselves just for plain being stupid. So movies like that just can't resonate with me because if you're trying to be realistic, it's just not going to work. You're not going to go stay at somebody else's house whom you just met in a different country, and you're also not going to bring your little daughter along with to stay with two people you know nothing really about.
I mean, but
You're just not going
people
to put
people
yourself in that situation.
but people do that.
Hmm?
But people do that. People do trust guides and other things in other
Well,
countries to
yeah,
get them around, right?
that's I suppose that's true, but it was hard for me to relate to that
Because you're like,
because I'm not
these are
that dumb.
because you're like, I because you wouldn't have done because you probably wouldn't have done that.
Absolutely not. And
Yeah.
on my YouTube channel, me and some of the panelists that were talking about that, and we're both of us, and it was really those of us who are parents that were speaking to this. There's no fucking way I'm
Yeah,
gonna
that would do
do that.
that. Well, Psychic Medium is laughing with us, Donna. Thanks for
Oh,
joining
there's
us.
Donna. Hi, Donna.
Richard, Jamie, Hounds and Jekylls, John, The Wise Wing, Revival House, all of you lovely people, thanks for spending some time with us. I don't know, Donna, was that you? Are you giving Josh hearts? I feel like that was you. I don't know. That's what I'm feeling. But I, time flies by when you're having so much fun. And we have I've been like I feel like I need to go watch a scary movie right now because I feel like I have a different awareness about myself and the way that you have talked about certain movies. It's like there is things that I would appreciate about these movies.
Here's a movie that I think you would like. Now, it is a little bit gory, but I think you would really appreciate the themes. And it's a movie called Nightbreed, which came out in about 1990, 91. Now you can find it streamed most places. You definitely want to find the director's cut because the theatrical release was all chopped up by the studio. But Nightbreed was written and directed by Clive Barker, who also did Hellraiser. It's based off of his novel called The Cabal. And what that story is about these basically this group of monsters, essentially, that live underneath this graveyard in this little ancient place called Midian, but they're not the real monsters of the story.
Mm.
It's the humans above the ground that are the real monsters. And for those who don't know, Clive Barker is an openly gay man. He's one of those people, though, who has, and I really admire this about him, he never came out of that closet because he was never in the closet in the first place. And you got to remember, this is the 1980s or so. and he
It
never gave a
wasn't
shit.
it wasn't easy back then at all to get that.
Probably not, but fortunately, I'd like to say that most of us in the horror genre are pretty accepting and tolerant of things like that. There's always going to be those outliers, of course, but it's obvious watching that movie, he is talking about himself and the culture that he's in, the gay community, for that matter, as being treated like monsters by the people above ground. And
Yeah.
um, yourself, I think you would definitely appreciate that. So that's a movie I would maybe recommend you. It's really more on the fantasy side than it is the horror side, but there are horror elements. That's why I'm thinking, yeah, it might be a good one for you to get into.
Segue. It's Night Bree.
Yeah, not the Nightbreed. It came out in 1990. I'll actually look around for it and I'll drop a link or something.
I was like, yeah, so because so this will be available for everybody tomorrow, and I'd come up with like episode descriptions. And lately, I've been asking my co-host like anything that we talk about,
Mm,
send me the link, and I'll put it in the replay so we can, this is what Josh was talking about. Go
right.
watch this fucking movie. So we'll link it right there. We'll link it there for them. So definitely, if you come across it, send me a message after this so I can.
Yeah, I can do my little. I don't know what streaming platforms
I
you
have a
have, but
I have a lot of them because my sister has a lot of them. So,
I'm
if
sure then I can find it on something that you have. It might be on. Normally, I can find most movies on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. Just has commercials, but I think it might also be on Amazon Prime as well. But
as I was figuring, I was like, "Oh, some of the stuff might be in Prime." I have that, and then obviously I have like the Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney, like those things. No problem, Donna. Uh, so before we like say adios to us, Donna says I was going to say Amazon Prime has a really great selection of scary movies. Well, and if I'm gonna watch one, it has to be the one now that Josh just mentioned, so no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I will definitely it has inspired me a little bit to be more open-minded about said genre. Again, I think I've watched my mom cover her eyes during, like, every scary movie that I just was like, "Why would you wanna, like, sit through anything that's gonna make you do that?" So I just made decisions to, like, I'm not gonna watch anything that's gonna scare me. Apparently, my mom getting scared easily, apparently made me like, I was fearful of something. But I kinda just wanted to ask, how did writing first become a part of your life?
well, I'm like one of those late bloomers. I started writing, God, it was just a little over 3 years ago, and maybe it's a midlife crisis, but I think I'd once when I was much younger, had thought about writing. I just didn't know what I wanted to write about. I probably didn't have the discipline or the focus to do it at that time. And then one day, it was like, I remember it was New Year's Day, January 1st of 2023. I decided, you know what? I've never made a New Year's resolution. So I'm going to sit down and write a story and see where it goes. And kind of went from there, really. And I kind of knew that, all right, I want to do the horror genre. So I ended up writing a fan fiction story at first, which was just me combining. Basically, I did a crossover between, once again, my two favorites, Halloween and Hellraiser together. Kind of almost a little bit like the Jason versus Freddy movie they had 20
Right.
years ago or so. And then I'm like, okay, this was a lot of fun. Now let me write something original. And then my wrote my first book that I end up self-publishing called Hangman of Darkness, which is kind of like a horror western that takes place in post-Civil War Texas. So with the main monster being a hangman of sorts, a demon dressed like the hangman who uh the backstory of that is he 30 years prior to this, he killed the parents of these two young children, this brother and sister. And now, 30 years later, they're now adults. And he's come back into this different town and they have to make their final stand against him. So um, so it's a family movie or a family story, I should say. But
Well, I was gonna say, where can, people find that book?
You can find that on I mean, I oftentimes every once in a while will drop links, but it's on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon. Just type in Hangman of Darkness. Hopefully it comes up. You can also find it on Barnes and Noble Press on their
Nice.
website. You can get from there. I would almost prefer people buy from Barnes and Noble
Barnes&
than
and Nobles.
Amazon just because I,
Even though Barnes& and
I
Noble is, like, the place for books.
right. So
You know, they they
and
they're
they
in they're
both
in equal competition for my in my world.
right. But a lot of people who live outside the country don't have access to
Access
Barnes
to
and
Barnes& and
Noble
Noble.
Press, whereas Amazon has all over the world for the most part. But that's where you can find them, and maybe I'll drop some links or whatever in your DM or whatever to where people can find the books. So
Yeah, I like to link things. Anything that we talk about in these conversations, I like to add the link so people could easily find stuff. So feel free to message me afterwards. I'd be more than happy to kind of put that in the episode thank you or description. I'll find a
okay.
place. I'll find a place for it. Don't you worry. um. All right. Well, Lynn, thanks for joining. Heather, thanks for joining. I'll make. Should I ask one more question? I think I got time for one more question. What question? Jason has evolved with every actor who's played him. Do you think horror writing evolves the same way?
uh that's a really good question. Um For some, yes and no. The thing is, you do so many things, particularly in the slasher genre, that things start becoming predictable a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, God, has it? I mean, there's a period of time where it has evolved, and then it probably slows down a little bit, and then someone comes back up. I mean, I think of movies go is like certain Jordan Peele's Get Out certainly, I think, did something different with the genre that really I mean, they've talked about race before in the genre, but not in this way and in a very entertaining way, mind you. That I was surprised when I first watched that film, and I don't know if that's one you've seen, probably not. But I was also not only is it will you find it scary and spooky, but there's also some really funny moments in the movie that weren't out of place. Because sometimes when you put humor in horror, it can sometimes be a little bit too out of place. But because even I like to put a little bit of humor sometimes in the stories I write, just to kind of deflate the tension a little bit. But it comes and goes. Sometimes it you go through a renaissance period where it seems like it's evolving, and then it kind of tapers down because everyone has now copied that and done that. So then you just have to wait for the next wave to come out to bring something new to the genre, whether it's through books or movies.
Hmm. Do you think which one do you think influences the genre more, books or movies?
I would say movies, just because, and not to say that books haven't. Obviously, Stephen King, just about every single one of his books has been adapted to the movie, so it's easy to see books. I would say through the first whatever 60, 70 years or so, because
Mhm.
Dracula came from Bram Stoker's novel, and
Right.
Frankenstein came from Mary Shelley, and H.P. Lovecraft. Several movies have been adapted from his stories, and of course Stephen King, Clive Barker, Anne Rice is another one. But it seems like in recent years, unless you're one of those big names, it seems like studios aren't really going looking for the next Stephen King anymore. There's trust me, there's plenty of talented horror writers out there, far more talented than me. Um, and I've read some books. I'm like, man, this would make a fantastic movie, but it's not what they're looking at now. Most directors like to write their own screenplays and write their own stories, which there's nothing wrong with that. But there isn't as much as far as books being adapted into movies. Unless your name is Stephen King, it's not likely to happen for the most part,
Yeah, but
unfortunately.
there's gotta be a next one. Like, there's got to be a next Stephen King. Like that. It's I don't.
Studios are too this particularly the major studios are too fucking lazy, to be honest with you. Most of them want to just do remakes, or they want to do another sequel and all that stuff, so they just don't want to do anything, with the exception of probably like the A24 studios that have brought us a lot of interesting movies. But once again, I don't think any of them were adapted from books, so it just seems like it also seems to me that people aren't reading as much. We've got this huge flush of influx of new writers that have come out in the last 10 years or so. There just aren't, I don't believe there to be as many readers. I don't think people are reading as much as they used to be. Maybe that's a drawback of social media because people now have the attention spans of 60 seconds and that's it. They don't want to just sit down and read something that's going to take them several hours, perhaps, depending on the size of the book. So I would like to say that books are still the main driving force of horror because that then bleeds into movies. But right now, it's just mainly, I think it's mostly movies. And there might be some people that might disagree with me on that, um, but maybe that'll change. Maybe we'll get a renaissance, or maybe
May- Maybe you'll
we'll
change it.
finally
Who
get a
knows?
new big wave of writers, hopefully.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe you just change it. I don't know. We can dream big. We can
Yeah.
if we can write, things, we can dream those things. So you have so much knowledge of the genre that I think that you could definitely cause some chaos within it, my friend.
Well, I did write a screenplay version of Hangman of Darkness, so I'm just trying to figure out how to get it noticed.
To
So
somebody
if you
that
know
can do
it,
something
if
with it.
there's any
Yeah.
independent directors out there that want to make a film, I got a screenplay for you. So
That's actually really that's interesting that you didn't just that you did both. That's very interesting that you did both. Lynn said that she said, I'm scared of horror, but I thought I'd pop in. Well, thanks for popping in. I am also scared of horror, apparently. But I think Josh has done a great, amazing job of it's more than that. Like, horror movies are way more than just being scared. Like, way, way more. Um, I mean, what do you think the biggest takeaway that you've learned over all of the years of all the different ones that you've learned about life from a horror movie?
that like I mentioned briefly how horror can be like the battle of good versus evil. And oftentimes the people that survive these movies they don't have superpowers. They're not super strong. They're just ordinary people. I know particularly many of my sisters out there in the horror genre have gained a lot of love for the horror movies because of the final girl trope that's been established, because they see themselves in them. So from a feminist standpoint, I know they've gained a lot of strength from that. And
Mhm.
in a lot of ways, I do too, because those women out there could easily be my sister, my girlfriend, my wife, whatever. And but anybody, and like say, little kids sometimes surviving a movie like It, for example. So it makes you root for I think we all like to root for the underdogs.
Yeah.
So, and those are the ones that typically survive the movie. So I think we always like a good underdog story. So that's something that's taught me that as ordinary as you might think you are, there's something special inside of everyone. So there you go.
Oh, I kinda love that. I love that that's something that you've taken away from horror movies too.
Mm.
Like, that's not just, like, your normal, like, what I would think. But again, I think just like a lot of us that are not into the said genre or haven't spent a lot of time amongst the said genre may have a certain understanding of it. So that's why it's so important to sit down and have conversations with people who are passionate about it like you. Like, I am genuinely blown away by the amount of history that you know. And it makes me kind of like, why don't I like something like that? Like, that I would know so much about it. Well, that's not like a sport. Like, basketball is like the only thing that I can talk about probably over like decades of time.
Well, we could probably talk about basketball too. I could talk about sports too. So there's
But I'm just saying, like, I
Mhm.
like as a human being, sometimes besides the writing. that I enjoy doing now that I get to do now, I don't think I've really ever had a passion for so and I've had these conversations with other people, like, I love that people love something so much. That isn't, like, said human, like, it's not a like, it's something else that, I kinda miss not having that in my life, you know? That's what I really mean about 'em. Um, but I have only one final question for you, and
Okay.
I'll let you go, okay? What made you say yes to joining me tonight in the Inner Room?
I've secretly been like waiting, like, because, and I'll admit, I don't get a chance to watch too many shows because yours normally you do your shows in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm at work, and sometimes I catch a little bit of it on my lunch break, like when you had Kristen on back last summer. But reading, seeing what I have seen of your show and just following you on Substack and all that, and I found you very unique and very I can tell you're a very passionate person. So I was like, I've been secretly waiting. God, I hope one of these days that'd be great if she asked me to come on board. but
Well, I mean, see, isn't it ironic that you could tell that I'm a passionate person, but I'm over here saying I don't feel like I'm passionate about anything? Isn't
Well,
that
you're
like
passionate about, I think the thing is your passion is providing a community for people. I
Mhm,
think people who might feel a little bit off uh as far as offering them encouragement. And I think we need a lot of that today.
mhm,
I won't get too much in it. I've dealt with through most of my life, going back to my teenage years, with depression and anxiety. And I think you probably have heard of some of my stories about that. And to know, have a community there, whether it's within my own horror genre, because trust me, I have plenty of made plenty of great friends
yeah.
there, but outside as well of people who've also dealt with things like that. So it's just kind of a comforting thing um, to know you're not alone, I guess.
Well, I mean, I genuinely love that you said that because while I can definitely understand that you have a community of people in your horror genre that, you know, that's something that you guys all like, I think it's also, to your point, humans are very first. And it's
Hmm.
also completely important to have a community that is open to talking about that it's okay that, your anxiety got you in your bed all day or your depression got you stuck on your couch or you're not really sure what you're fucking feeling right now. And
Hmm.
you have a community that, well, I'm kind of quirky too, where I've had people openly talk about bipolar disorder on this platform. I
Right.
have had 2 guests that openly talk about that disorder, as well as, I've had fellow addicts on here that talk about it, and we always talk about mental health goes directly with addiction. So, I definitely try to create a space where all people feel welcomed and they don't have to be bashful about whatever they're feeling, because I guarantee you somebody in here is feeling it too. I guarantee it. So, sometimes all it takes is somebody saying like something that opens the door for other people to feel comfortable, like, "Oh, wait, it's not weird that I feel this? Oh, okay, we can talk about this here?" It's cool to kind of provide a space where be who the fuck you are. Like,
Right.
whoever it is, whoever you wanna show up today, I'm rooting for it, you know? And, I think, like, to your point, in this world, we need more people that are just rooting for other humans despite what the fuck they are into, you know? I like humans. I wanna root for humans. All humans deserve to be happy and have everything that they want in their life come true. I'm never going to sit here and be like, "Oh, well, they're kind of shitty people, so they don't deserve it." Like, that's not me. Everybody's got their own karma cycle to go through, you know?
Right. Well, and all it takes is sometimes a person that's like feeling down, all they need is just one little compliment, and that can totally change their mood for the day.
Yeah,
Even if
absolutely.
it's just for that day, I've I've come to find that out. Nothing gives me more, I guess, nothing like helps me more during the day when if I see something that's just a pleasant, nice little short, little quick, fun, comment on something that I wrote that normally makes my day. Uh, so, I mean, as weird, and that might sound a little self-indulgent, I don't know, but I, of course, always try to return the favor back as well because I know people are dealing with it too. So,
But you literally said what I, like, preach on a daily basis, and I kinda slack sometimes on reading because my attention span kinda sucks, so we've discussed that,
hmm
but when I do an open thread in the community or when I am just searching and I wanna I bookmark everything now, and then I look at my bookmarks, and if they get too long scrolly, then it's like, "Alright, I gotta read, and I gotta get these down." So that's my system. I eventually get to things, I promise. But, like, it is so important for me to spend the time to create a meaningful comment to the point that I've had, like, Candy Downs and Abby Wade, like, be like, "Oh, she literally gives the best comments." It's like, I take a pride in that. Like, I know
yeah.
that anything that I say on your it's one thing to just get a like on your work, but when
hmm
somebody takes the time out to engage with what you put time into, yeah, that's important. That's
I think
definitely
that's the biggest thing I've gotten out of Substack. Um, you know, whether get, I don't really necessarily care how many subscribers I have. I'm somewhere over 700. I really don't give a shit, one way or another. I mean, I'd be totally happy if I just had 25 if they all engaged regularly with me,
right.
to be honest. The biggest thing I've gotten out of Substack is the community. And, there's some people I knew before I came on Substack, some of whom have came on because I told them how great it was and vice versa. So yeah, in this, I kind of wish we all lived in the same little town. Really, it'd be nice to like get together and meet people in person for once. But this is the best form of communication we can do right now.
I mean, right now, definitely, any type of virtual thing is cool, but I definitely agree that, like, there should be a quarterly event that happens on each coast, like, so people that live on the West Coast attend something that's central to, like, West,
hmm
area, and then East, and then Central, and I just, hope that people attend to it that can attend to it, because maybe it's in driving distance of you, or maybe it's a lot shorter of a flight or something, like, maybe it becomes a little bit easier to get a bigger collective together if you kind of, generalize it by area, but I'd say all the time. I know that there's somebody on here that's done it, but getting a map and just, like, putting everybody's names and then be like, "Alright, Onyx, you ready? We're gonna jump into the Subi, and we're just gonna go do 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 do. These humans have to tolerate me for at least a day or 2 and house me, but I'll come visit everybody, I don't give a fuck." And then we can go live, like, in the same place together, and then it's even more fun. But that is definitely a goal of mine, is to visit some of the amazing people that are on here. That also means that I need a passport, and I have to take international flights because there are a lot of amazing people outside of the United States.
Yeah, I've had conversations with people on my YouTube channel that live in Europe, and they're always fun conversations to have because it's just kind of this is something, social media has a lot of drawbacks, obviously, but let's put it this way: 20 20 years ago, could we have a conversation like this with someone living in Ireland or Spain or England? Or I have one person I'm going to try and get with who lives in Indonesia, so American who has moved to Indonesia, so I plan on having her on at some point. There, you have to work out the time
Quite a
difference, but
difference there, but, I feel like it cost a fortune to just make a phone call to somebody outside the country 20 years ago.
yeah, it would have.
Yeah, like, I think I like, out of state, like, like, people had to pay for that too, so imagine being out of country.
Yeah, they kinda, like, went out once cell phones became a thing, that the whole long having to get
Long
a
distance.
long distance phone service when we all had regular, like, landlines. You had your local phone service, and then you had to get a long distance one, and, yeah, you had to that could cost a pretty penny to talk to someone across the country, just alone, let alone out of
Like,
the country.
that's why people wrote and sent letters, and
Mhm.
that was their form of communicating to people that didn't live within their same sector of the world, apparently. But yeah, I mean, it is quite fascinating when we kind of go down memory lane a little bit of the evolution of just everything. Everything. Ginny, Christina, and Kevin, thanks for joining us. Donna said she had to leave, but you guys, I don't know if you're aware, but I've been sitting here with Horror Hangouts, and we went through quite a few questions. So I was actually gonna head out to bed, and now I'm all upset that some people continue to join in. Look at
Yeah, I've
that.
noticed that we got quite a few people just joining in here and just coming in left
Yeah.
and right here. So
Which, I mean, like I said, I do my best, especially since it's late here tonight. This will be available tomorrow. Obviously, all portions of Inner Room Conversations are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Pocket Casts for anybody that wants to peep over there tomorrow. If you just are joining in right now, you'll be able to hear us. And maybe after this conversation, you'll think about horror movies a lot differently. Because I think I have. I think I completely have a completely different understanding of it. And that would not be possible without Josh's amazing history and feedback. I mean, dude, I think you're gonna make a difference in them.
well,
That's my
thank
nice
you.
compliment for the day, okay? Because I'm just saying, like, I don't see how somebody with all your knowledge doesn't make a difference in horror in whatever direction it's going the next 20, 30 years.
It's a big old ass, and I just privileged to be one small little pimple on it.
I didn't know. So Christina Ray just said I just finished my live with Crispy Wrights, or I would have been here earlier. I didn't know you were live. Now I'm mad that I missed your live. See, this is what happens. I love supporting other people, and then it's like, well, I can't be in multiple places. But yeah, I apologize for just doing a squirrel on you, Josh. My bad. I'm actually surprised that that was kind of like one of the first times or second times I only did it today. Usually that happens a lot more often. So, but yeah, no, you've done a great job of really, like I said, I feel like if it wasn't late, because my dreams have been wicked lately. If it wasn't late, I would turn on the scary movie. I would or try to at least see if I could stream the one that you mentioned earlier.
Nightbreed.
Night. Is it breed like BREED or brie like the cheese?
No, breed as in BREED.
Okay, night breed. Bath of Guy says, greetings, everyone. Peace and loving kindness. I appreciate you joining. But unfortunately, me and Josh are, well, I don't know. I'm probably going to go to bed, but we're going to exit for the day. I can't believe how, how quickly an hour and some change went by. You've
Oh, I
occupied.
know. Some of my live streams I do on YouTube will go 2.5 hours easy, and it doesn't even feel like it.
See, that's the importance of community and being, having conversations openly with the people around you that are just as interested in the things that you're interested, or at least I'm curious of the things that you're interested in. I wish I knew more about it so that I could have longer conversations with you about it. Maybe the next time, though. You
Yeah,
never know.
maybe.
You never know. I might be like, "Oh my god, I actually watched this, blah, blah. Let's talk about it," and pick each other's brains. You just never know, because 'cause you've definitely influenced my ways of thinking into maybe being a little bit more open about the horror genre, and it kinda makes me sad now about the book thing, like, about writing being not really the main. That kinda makes me sad, because I think there needs to be a Stephen King after Stephen King. Just saying.
Oh, absolutely. So
I mean, that's just said, it could be you.
who knows? I know nothing about making movies, but I'd give it a shot.
But he writes books.
Yeah.
You could write a book. You could write books. You've
Oh
written
yeah.
books.
Well, I'm working on my third one now. So
I'm saying you're already 3 ahead of the game.
hmm,
uh, but with that being said, you've been in the inner room where the conversations go deep, the connections surprise, and the truths linger long after the world quiets down. Until next time, keep listening inward, because that's where the stories that shape us really live. Thank you, Josh, for joining me tonight, and I hope everybody has a wonderful night.
yep.
Bye,
Good
everybody.
night, everyone.